Imagine you're watching a normal day suddenly turn into a scene no movie could ever recreate. One tiny mistake, one spark, and the whole world of someone explodes in front of the camera. Today, we're stepping inside those real moments where life changed in a single terrifying blast, and every second was captured on video. The fireworks city that turned into a crater. In a Mexican city called Tultepec, people have spent almost 200 years making the colorful fireworks that light up celebrations around the world. But on December 20th, 2016, their pride turned into their worst nightmare. At the famous San Pablito fireworks market, a young seller went for lunch, leaving tons of explosive goods lying under the hot sun, just like any other day. No one knew that around 300 tons of pyrotechnics were quietly waiting for the tiniest trigger. Suddenly, the sky that was supposed to be full of colors exploded into pure horror. One blast set off another and another, until the entire market turned into a rolling wave of fire and smoke that cameras and phones caught from every angle. Stalls, roofs, and streets disappeared in a chain of explosions that sounded like a war zone. 40 people lost their lives and more than 80 were badly injured as the market was completely flattened, leaving behind only twisted metal and ashes where families had worked for generations. It took 2 years to rebuild the market, and officials promised that sellers would now treat every box of fireworks with far more care. But in the back of everyone's mind, one question still burns. Can you ever really feel safe around that much fire trapped in colorful paper? The train of fire that devoured a sleeping town. In the quiet Canadian town of Lac-Mégantic, people went to sleep on a warm July night in 2013, never imagining that a monster was racing toward them in the dark. That monster didn't have teeth or claws. It had train wheels, tank cars, and thousands of liters of crude oil. A freight train with a faulty locomotive had been patched up using the wrong kind of material, and oil had been slowly building up inside the machinery for months like a ticking time bomb no one could see. Around 1 a.m., cameras and security footage caught a sudden blast that turned the calm town center into a roaring inferno. A giant fireball rose 3 times higher than the tallest buildings, glowing so brightly that people could feel its heat from 2 kilometers away. Panicked residents jumped from windows as fire rolled through the streets, finally slipping into the town's sewer system, where flames shot out of storm drains like geysers from hell. Fire crews were so overwhelmed by the heat and toxic smoke that they could only work in short shifts, in a battle that lasted nearly a full day before the flames finally died. When the smoke cleared, 47 people were gone and the heart of Lac-Mégantic was almost completely destroyed, all because of a long, slow mechanical mistake and a train full of fuel in the wrong place at the wrong time. Tianjin, when a warehouse explosion shook the earth. On an August night in 2015, the busy Chinese port city of Tianjin looked like any other industrial powerhouse. Lines of containers, silent warehouses, and workers finishing their shifts. A fire was reported in one of the port warehouses, and firefighters rushed in, not knowing they were stepping into the center of a disaster powerful enough to be picked up as an earthquake. At first, it was just a massive, stubborn fire, too large and too hot to handle. Then, at about 11:30 p.m., reality itself seemed to tear open. 2 enormous explosions ripped through the port, captured on camera as blinding flashes and mushroom-shaped clouds that turned night into day. Everything within 1 kilometer of the blast was instantly destroyed, with every living thing in that zone losing its life in a fraction of a second. The shockwave shattered windows and ripped ceilings open 6 kilometers away, and more than 12,000 cars parked nearby were burned and twisted like toys. More than 200 people were killed, and the explosions were so strong that China's National Earthquake Network recorded them as magnitude 2.5 and 3 tremors. Later, investigators discovered that containers full of ammonium nitrate, a chemical often used as fertilizer, had been stored at temperatures way above safe limits. That silent, invisible neglect turned into an explosion with an energy equivalent to 27 tons of TNT, more powerful than the nuclear bomb dropped on Nagasaki, all from a warehouse that was supposed to follow the rules and keep people safe. Beirut's shocking blast over the sea. 5 years after Tianjin, history repeated itself in another port, this time in Beirut, Lebanon. 4 years, a huge stockpile of ammonium nitrate had been sitting in a warehouse at the harbor, almost forgotten. Like a sleeping dragon, no one dared to move, but no one properly guarded. On August 4, 2020, Smoke started rising from the port, and people nearby pulled out their phones, curious and worried, not knowing that their videos would soon capture one of the most terrifying explosions ever seen. First, there was a fire, then a strange, thick cloud, and then, in an instant, the world seemed to vanish behind a massive white blast wave. Cameras filmed a perfect, expanding ring of destruction flying outward faster than anyone could react, smashing windows, crushing buildings, and throwing cars like toys. The shockwave triggered a magnitude 3.5 earthquake, killed at least 210 people, and left around 300,000 homeless in a single moment. Streets that had been full of life turned into broken glass, dust, and silence. The videos spread across the internet, shocking millions who watched over and over as the peaceful blue water of the harbor was swallowed by a mushroom cloud that looked more like a war explosion than an accident. The anger and pain after the blast was so deep that protests filled the streets and Lebanon's government resigned, leaving behind a country asking how so much power could be left sitting in a warehouse, waiting to explode. Castle Bravo, the second Hiroshima, in the middle of the ocean. Not all explosions caught on camera happen by accident. Some are planned, measured, and filmed on purpose, but even those can go horribly beyond what humans expect. In 1954, the United States prepared to test a powerful thermonuclear bomb in the Pacific Ocean, far from its own cities, believing the danger would stay safely out at sea. The device, codenamed Castle Bravo, was supposed to have a yield of less than 6 megatons of TNT, still massive, but within predicted limits. Scientists thought they knew exactly what would happen when the countdown ended. They were wrong, very wrong. When the bomb detonated, cameras and instruments recorded an explosion 2.5 times more powerful than expected, reaching a terrifying 15 megatons of TNT. A record-breaking mushroom cloud rose almost 45 kilometers into the sky, dwarfing even the nuclear blast over Nagasaki, and the coral reef around the test site was torn apart and turned into deadly radioactive dust. That fallout spread far beyond the test zone, drifting for hundreds of kilometers across the ocean. One Japanese tuna boat, the Daigo Fukuryu Maru, was caught under the invisible cloud. All 23 fishermen on board suffered severe radiation sickness, and one of them eventually died. Japanese newspapers called Castle Bravo a second Hiroshima, and the US government had to pay millions of dollars in compensation. The explosion proved that even when humans think they're in control of the biggest bombs ever built, nature and physics can still surprise them in the worst possible way.